Trump's got the quips at the dinner Kamala skips. Our video of the day comes to us from the Al Smith Dinner, a fundraiser for Catholic charities here in New York. Historically, presidential candidates attend together, setting aside their differences for a good cause and the chance to brutally roast each other. And Trump did not hold back. Roll it.
Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president. There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. The major issue in this race is childcare, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep them away. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz. Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas.
But much like Jesse Water, when the bill comes, Kamala was a no-show. The first Democrat nominee to bail on the dinner since '84. And if you can't remember the candidate in '84, that's why. She chose instead to play a cringeworthy pre-taped skit.
The Al Smith Dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship. Cool. Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Elliott. Mary Catherine Elliott. It's so nice to meet you.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I simmer them like that.
I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
It's time for a woman, bro. Don't forget to say superstar.
Thank you, Mary Catherine.
Thank you, Mama.
Well, that was timely. Does anybody born after 1980 even know what the hell that was? But surprisingly, the MC of the evening, Jim Gaffigan, who also plays Tim Walz on SNL, didn't let the Dems off the hook.
President Biden couldn't be here tonight. The DNC made sure of that. You know, this event has been referred to as the Catholic Met Gala. 22% of Americans identify as Catholic. Catholics will be a key demographic in every battleground state. I'm sorry, why is Vice President Harris not here? The Democrats have been telling us Trump's re-election is a threat to democracy. In fact, they were so concerned of this threat, they staged a coup, ousted their democratically elected incumbent, and installed Kamala Harris. In other words, all her dreams have come true.
Ouch! Hurts more than my hemorrhoids. So, Bobby, you were there last night, and I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about this earlier, this divisiveness, this thick cloud of divisiveness, and yet you see Chuck Schumer playfully engaging Trump, and it kind of bothers me, because it's like, on the publicly they say Trump is Satan, and then they're like, you know, shaking hands and having comfortable conversation. Is Schumer aware of the damage that his demonization is having when it's not, especially when it's not true?
I didn't see, from my perspective, I could not see Schumer enjoying any part of it.
Yeah, okay.
He did look glum throughout, and
Yeah.
you know, one of the really interesting phenomena about what's happened over really since COVID is that it used to be that comedy was the purview of the left, and that Republicans who were kind of at that time spouting kind of corporate and governmental orthodoxies. You can't be funny when you do that.
No.
And then all the funniest people on the left became not funny. Stephen Colbert, who used to be one of the funniest people in the world, you can't watch him anymore.
Yeah.
And all the comedy is now happening on the right. And even when when I didn't like Trump, when I believed all of the propaganda against him, and and saw a lot of the things about him that that are let's say unconventional. But I always said he's the most entertaining politician that we've had in my lifetime. He has great comedic timing, and he showed that last night. He was really funny last night, really droll. And yet he got, it was generally a hostile crowd.
Yeah.
And he got universal laughter on all of those jokes. And you don't see that on the left anymore.
No, you don't. Tyrus, was it a good idea for Kamala? What's funny is she did say in her video, it's important to come together, and then she didn't show up.
Right. Well, again, this isn't like we haven't seen her in public settings. And I'm pretty sure when her team found out that there was no teleprompter, there was going to be no Kamala. Like, it's just, she doesn't do well in those settings. We haven't figured out what interview settings she does well in yet, but we're pretty sure getting up there in front of people and telling jokes. And here's the difference. Trump said some ones that weren't so great, right? Because unfortunately, he didn't have time to prep because somebody made him late. That was high. But he went and did it anyway. And even when they were bad, I think one of the funniest parts of the whole thing was like, well, this one's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I should have read this one through. Like, he was not afraid to make fun of himself. Now, in the clips there was a lot of tough jokes, and the comedians were throwing real shots at him. But every time they did, he smiled, he acknowledged it, he laughed, he took it on, he was gracious. That would not have happened the other side. We would have saw what happened. We saw when who gets mad at Brett Baer? How hard is it? Like, no one gets mad at Brett Baer. And when she was screaming at Brett Baer, what was she going to do when he said that? We would have seen a reaction that would not have been good for her. So she thought not showing up was the best move, which should let everybody know exactly where their campaign is at right now.
Joey, Gaffigan mentioning the coup. It's like, that seems like a right-wing talking point, but he's not a right-winger. He's a Democrat.
No, I think he brought some personal animus in there. Like, hey, he is not happy about how that went out. That's how it came across to me. Because it was less comedy than some of the things that Trump was saying. And props to him for giving everyone that might tune in something that they could watch and not need to turn away from. I mean, I can't turn into, I don't get overly upset about what artists think or what celebrities want. That doesn't stop me from enjoying their art when they're good, actors and singers. But I can't tune into the Golden Globes or the Oscars or anything like that because they're not telling me Trump is bad. They're telling me I'm bad.
Yes.
He didn't do that last night, and I appreciate him for it. And for Trump, I think the biggest power move he did was slapping Schumer on the back and being, he's an all right guy. Yeah. Because they are so focused on demonizing Trump. Like, that's all they have right now. I mean, when you look at the top issues for Kamala, I read a poll today going on Newsroom, the second most important issue was that she isn't Trump.
Yeah.
They've programmed people to believe he's just the absolute worst thing that could ever happen. He goes up there and says, yeah, this guy hates me, but he's all right. That's a power move. That's being an alpha.
Yeah, Dagan, it's like when I saw him do that to Chuck, it was like watching Batman, give a wedgie to the Penguin.
Jerry Nadler wasn't there. That was Chuck Schumer.
He looks more like the Penguin than Nadler.
Speaking of Nadler, it would be like reaching over and going, I've always wanted to do this with the dandruff and just brushing off his suit coat, because he kept going back to Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
And at one point he said, Chuck, he's the one who got Biden out. He's the guy, much more so than Nancy Pelosi. I know him. He's the one who did it. And the more he talked about Chuck Schumer became more and more like Montgomery Burns.
Yeah.
He was shrinking. He was like, please stop talking about me. Trump was loose and confident.
After a long day.
Yeah.
Like, he was he did it. We're going to show clips of Tyrus's interview later in the show. But, I would be in bed by now. I don't get it.
Yeah, before that, he was in Wall Street.
Yeah.
Like big meetings. It was,
He went to a barber shop in the Bronx.
Trump's the kind of guy. I'll shut up. No, they just yelled at me, so I'll shut up.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.